May 5, 1945. Okinawa, Japan, Hacksaw Ridge, 4:17 a.m. The cliff face rose 400 feet straight up, pure vertical rock. At the top, hell itself waited. Japanese machine guns, mortars, grenades. 75,000 enemy soldiers defending the last island before mainland Japan. The 77th Infantry Division had tried to take that ridge for 3 days. 3 days of watching men climb the rope cargo nets to the top. 3 days of watching them die before they could even raise their rifles. 3 days of bodies falling back down the cliff, screaming all the way to the bottom. And now, on the 4th day, one man was going back up. Alone, unarmed. While every other soldier retreated down the cliff to safety, he climbed toward the gunfire. His name was Desmond Doss. He was a medic. A conscientious objector. A Seventh-day Adventist who refused to touch a weapon. His own company had tried to get him court-martialed. His captain had called him a coward. His fellow soldiers had beaten him, mocked him, and left him for dead during training. But on this morning, with the entire American assault collapsing, with hundreds of wounded men trapped on top of that ridge surrounded by Japanese soldiers, Desmond Doss made a promise to God that would define the most controversial act of heroism in World War II. "Please, Lord," he whispered, climbing the rope net hand over hand while bullets sparked off the rock beside him. "Help me get one more, just one more." He would repeat that prayer 75 times before sunrise. This is the true story of the man who saved an entire company without firing a single shot. The story of how a deeply religious farm boy from Virginia became the most decorated soldier in his division despite never killing a single enemy. The story of how the American military tried to destroy him, and how he proved that courage doesn't require a weapon. Every word is true. Every impossible moment actually happened. And by the end, you'll understand why his fellow soldiers called Desmond Doss the bravest man they ever knew. The story begins 3 years earlier. Lynchburg, Virginia, 1942. America had just entered World War II. Recruitment offices overflowed with young men desperate to serve. Propaganda posters covered every wall. "Uncle Sam wants you. Defeat the Axis. Remember Pearl Harbor." Desmond Doss walked past all of them and straight into the recruiting station. He was 23 years old, tall, thin, with gentle eyes and a quiet way of speaking. He worked at a shipyard as a carpenter. He'd never been in a fight, never fired a gun, never even raised his voice in anger. His friends described him as the kindest person they'd ever met. "I want to enlist," he told the recruiting sergeant. The sergeant looked him up and down. Farm boy, soft hands, probably never held a rifle. He'd wash out in basic training, but they needed bodies. "Sign here." "I should mention something first," Desmond said. "I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. I won't carry a weapon. I won't kill, but I want to serve. I want to help. I can be a medic." The sergeant stared at him. "You want to enlist in the infantry, go to war, but you won't fight." "I didn't say I won't fight. I said I won't kill. There's a difference. I'll serve. I'll go wherever they send me. I'll do whatever needs doing, but I won't take a life." The sergeant laughed, not a kind laugh. "Son, you're gonna get yourself killed. You know that, right? The Japs don't care about your religion. They'll shoot you same as anyone else." "I know. And your fellow soldiers. They're not gonna want some coward who won't pull his weight." "I'm not a coward." "Then prove it. Take a weapon." "No, sir." The sergeant shook his head, but regulations were regulations. Conscientious objectors were allowed to serve as medics. "Fine, but don't expect any special treatment. Boot camp's gonna eat you alive." He had no idea how right he was. Fort Jackson, South Carolina, basic training, April 1942. Desmond arrived at boot camp expecting to be assigned to the medical corps. Instead, he was placed in a rifle company. Delta Company, 77th Infantry Division, with soldiers being trained to kill. The other recruits noticed him immediately, not because he was different, because he wouldn't do what everyone else did. Weapons training, everyone lined up at the rifle range. The drill sergeant handed out M1 Garands. When he reached Desmond, Desmond shook his head. "I won't take it, sir." The drill sergeant's face turned red. "What did you say, Private?" "I won't carry a weapon, sir. It's against my religious beliefs." Silence fell over the range. 70 recruits staring at this thin kid refusing a direct order. "Private Doss, I'm ordering you to take this rifle." "No, sir." "You will take this rifle, or I will have you court-martialed for insubordination." "Respectfully, sir, Army Regulations 615-360 permits conscientious objectors to serve in non-combatant roles. I'm willing to serve as a medic, but I won't carry a gun." The drill sergeant stepped closer, nose to nose. "You think you're special, you think you're better than these men. Every one of them is willing to fight and die for this country, and you're too good to pick up a rifle." "It's not about being better, sir. It's about my faith." "Your faith is gonna get real men killed." The sergeant turned to the rest of the company. "This is Private Doss. He's too religious to fight. So when the Japs are shooting at you, don't expect him to shoot back. He'll be hiding behind you cowards while real soldiers do the dying." Laughter mocking, Desmond stood still, face burning with shame. That night in the barracks, it got worse. The other soldiers surrounded his bunk. One of them, a big farm boy from Texas named Vickers, grabbed Desmond by the collar. "My brother died at Pearl Harbor. He died fighting Japs, and you won't even pick up a gun." "I'm sorry about your brother, but I can serve without killing." "You're gonna get us all killed, you know that. When we're in combat and you won't cover our backs, we're dead." Another soldier chimed in. "He's a coward, plain and simple." Desmond stood up. For the first time, anger flashed in his eyes. "I'm not a coward. I'll go anywhere you go. I'll face the same bullets, the same bombs. I'll do it unarmed while you have weapons. And you want to call me a coward?" Vickers hit him hard across the jaw. Desmond went down. "Get up," Vickers snarled. "Get up and fight back." Desmond stood, blood on his lip. "No." "What?" "I won't fight you. Hit me again if it makes you feel better, but I won't hit back." Vickers did hit him again, and again, until a sergeant finally pulled him off. Desmond never threw a punch, never even raised his hands to defend himself. The beating became routine. Every few nights, someone would find an excuse. He took their boots by mistake. He snored too loud. He existed. They'd beat him while he refused to fight back. His captain, Captain Glover, called him into the office. "Private Doss, I'm going to be straight with you. Your presence is destroying unit cohesion. The men don't trust you. They think you're a liability. I'm recommending you for a Section 8 discharge. Psychiatric, you can go home." "No, sir." "No, Doss, I'm giving you an out. Take it." "I enlisted to serve, sir. I'm not leaving." "Then you'll carry a weapon like everyone else." "I can't do that, sir." Glover slammed his hand on the desk. "Then I'll have you court-martialed. I'll charge you with insubordination, cowardice, and refusing a direct order. You'll spend the war in Leavenworth Prison." "If that's what needs to happen, sir, then that's what needs to happen. But I won't compromise my faith." Glover stared at this impossible man. He'd been an officer for 12 years. He'd never met anyone like Desmond Doss. Stubborn beyond reason, committed to an ideal that made no military sense. But also, there was something in his eyes, not fear, not weakness, conviction. "You're either the stupidest man I've ever met or the bravest. I haven't decided which." "Probably a little of both, sir." The court-martial proceedings began. Desmond stood before a military tribunal. The charges: refusing to obey lawful orders, conduct unbecoming a soldier, cowardice. His lawyer, a young lieutenant who barely passed the bar, tried to mount a defense. Gentlemen of the court, Private Doss has rights under Army Regulations 615-360. The War Department recognizes conscientious objectors. Objection. The prosecution stood. Private Doss enlisted in a rifle company. He accepted assignment to a combat unit. He cannot now claim exemption from combat duties. He's either a soldier or he's not. If he won't fight, he should be discharged or imprisoned. The Judge Advocate General looked at Desmond. Private Doss, this is your last chance. Will you accept standard infantry training, including weapons qualification? No, sir. You understand that if convicted, you could face 5 years in military prison. Yes, sir. And you still refuse. My faith is more important than my freedom, sir. The panel deliberated for 3 hours. They returned with a verdict: not guilty on grounds of religious exemption. Desmond could serve as a medic non-combatant, but he would go with his unit to combat zones. Captain Glover was furious. You think you won? You're coming with us to the Pacific, to real combat. And when the bullets start flying and your religion doesn't stop Japanese steel, you're going to wish you'd taken that Section 8 discharge. Desmond just nodded. I'll be there, sir. Wherever the men go, I'll go. Without a weapon. Glover shook his head. God help us all. 6 months later, April 1945, the 77th Division shipped out to Okinawa, the final island before Japan. The bloodiest battle of the Pacific War was about to begin. The men of Delta Company had spent those 6 months learning to hate Desmond Doss a little less, not because they understood him, not because they agreed with him, but because he never quit. Through every march, every drill, every exercise, Desmond kept up. Even carrying extra medical supplies instead of a rifle, he matched their pace. Never complained, never asked for special treatment. Vickers, who'd beaten him that first night, watched Desmond during a 20-mile forced march. Everyone else was struggling. Desmond marched at the front, medic bag bouncing on his hip, barely breathing hard. How do you do it? Vickers asked later. Do what? Keep up, you're carrying an extra 40 pounds of medical gear. No weapon means more supplies. You should be falling behind. Desmond smiled. I prayed for strength, God provides. You really believe that? I have to, it's all I have. Something shifted in Vickers' eyes. Not quite respect, not quite friendship, but the beginning of understanding. April 29, 1945, Okinawa. The 77th Division came ashore expecting resistance. They got worse, silence. The Japanese had retreated inland to the high ground, to a massive escarpment that American maps called the Mita Escarpment. The soldiers called it Hacksaw Ridge, 400 feet of sheer cliff. At the top, a plateau about 50 yards wide before the ground rose again into caves and bunkers and hidden artillery positions. The Japanese had spent months fortifying it. They had the high ground. They had prepared fields of fire. They had enough ammunition to hold for months. The Americans had roped cargo nets and the order to take that ridge. Captain Glover briefed the company. We go up at dawn, it's gonna be rough. The Japs know we're coming. They'll hit us the second we clear the top. Stay low, move fast, get off that ridge top and into cover. He looked at Desmond. Doss, you stay back, let us clear the ridge first, then you can come up and play doctor. Respectfully, sir, I go with the men. You'll die in the first 30 seconds. Then I'll die, but I won't abandon the men before the fight even starts. Glover wanted to argue, but there was no time. Find your funeral, Dawn, May 2, 1945. The first assault on Hacksaw Ridge. Desmond climbed the cargo nets with everyone else, hand over hand, 400 feet of rope and cliff face, men below, men above, all climbing toward the sound of gunfire that hadn't even started yet. They were 50 feet from the top when the mortars began. The Japanese had zeroed in on the nets. They didn't need to aim, just drop mortar shells straight down the cliff. The explosions ripped through the climbing men. Soldiers screamed, fell. The ones who didn't fall fast enough got tangled in the nets, hanging there bleeding while the shells kept coming. Desmond saw a soldier above him take shrapnel in the leg. The man's grip failed. He started to fall. Desmond grabbed him with one hand, held the net with the other. The wounded man's weight nearly pulled them both off. "I got you," Desmond shouted. "Hold on." He couldn't pull the man up, couldn't climb, couldn't do anything but hold on while mortars exploded around them and the wounded man's blood ran down his arm. Another soldier, McGarry, stopped his climb to help. Together they pulled the wounded man back onto the net. "Can you climb?" Desmond asked. "My leg." "I know, can you climb?" "I think so." "Then climb, I'm right behind you." They made it to the top. The ridge was hell. Japanese machine guns opened up the moment American helmets appeared over the edge. Men died still climbing onto the plateau. Others made it 3 steps before bullets cut them down. Desmond saw a soldier get hit in the chest. The man fell backward. Desmond caught him, dragged him behind the only cover available, a small depression in the rock. Bullets sparked around them. "You're gonna be okay," Desmond said, ripping open the man's uniform to find the wound. "You're gonna be fine." "I can't breathe," the soldier gasped. Sucking chest wound, both lungs collapsing. Desmond worked fast, pressure bandage, seal the wound. Pray the bleeding stopped before the man drowned in his own blood. "Stay with me," Desmond ordered. "Look at me, stay with me." The soldier's eyes focused on Desmond's face. "Don't let me die." "You're not dying, not on my watch." He wrapped the wound, injected morphine, held pressure until the bleeding slowed, all while bullets cut the air above their heads and mortars shook the ground. When the soldier's breathing stabilized, Desmond looked up, saw 3 more wounded, 5, 10. Men scattered across the ridge top, screaming for help. He ran to the nearest one, a kid from Ohio, 18 years old, both legs mangled by a grenade. Desmond applied tourniquets, stopped the bleeding, dragged him behind cover, ran to the next, and the next, and the next. For 6 hours while the battle raged, Desmond Doss treated wounded men under fire. No weapon, no helmet half the time. He'd given it to a wounded soldier, just his medic bag and a refusal to let anyone die. The other soldiers began to notice. This man who wouldn't carry a gun was running toward gunfire to save lives. Vickers saw Desmond pull a wounded man out of the line of fire and thought, "He's gonna get himself killed." But Desmond didn't get killed. He treated 19 men that first day, got them stabilized, helped them down the cliff. And when the order came to retreat at dusk, Desmond went down last, making sure no wounded were left behind. In the chaos of the descent, he realized someone was missing. A soldier named Ralph, last seen unconscious near the top. "We left him," Desmond shouted to Glover. "Ralph's still up there." "He's dead by now. The Japs control that ridge. We're not going back." "I'm going back." "Like hell you are. That's an order, Private." Desmond looked at the captain, then at the rope nets, then started climbing. "Doss, I will have you shot for desertion." But Desmond was already climbing, alone, in darkness, toward the ridge where Japanese soldiers now walked freely among the American dead. He reached the top, moved silently in the darkness, found Ralph unconscious behind a rock, barely breathing. Desmond checked his pulse. Alive, barely. He couldn't carry Ralph down the cliff, too steep, too dark. So he did something that seemed impossible. He tied rope around Ralph's chest, looped it through a metal fixture at the cliff edge, and lowered Ralph 400 feet down that cliff hand over hand in complete darkness while Ralph's dead weight pulled against the rope hard enough to tear the skin off Desmond's palms. It took 40 minutes. His hands bled, his shoulders screamed. But when he finally felt the rope go slack, he knew Ralph had reached the bottom. Then he climbed down himself, found Ralph surrounded by medics. Found Glover staring at him in disbelief. "You're insane," Glover said. "He's alive." "You're completely insane." "Yes, sir, probably." For the next 3 days, the 77th Division tried to take Hacksaw Ridge. 3 days of climbing, fighting, dying, bleeding. The Japanese wouldn't give. The Americans wouldn't quit. And every day, Desmond Doss climbed that cliff and saved lives under fire. On May 5th, the 4th day, the Americans finally pushed across the ridge. They gained 50 yards, 100, dug in, held their ground, but they paid for every inch. By afternoon, 75 men lay wounded on top of that ridge. Too many to move, too scattered to protect, and the Japanese were preparing a counterattack to push the Americans back off the cliff. The order came down, fall back. Evacuate, get off the ridge before the counterattack hits. The Americans retreated, climbing down the nets as fast as they could. Officers, sergeants, riflemen, everyone running for their lives except Desmond Doss. He stayed on top of the ridge, alone, surrounded by wounded men. Surrounded by Japanese soldiers preparing to attack, completely unarmed, and he started pulling wounded men to the cliff edge, one by one, dragging them across broken ground under fire, tying rope around their chests, lowering them down the cliff face, one after another after another. "Dear Lord," he prayed after each one, "please help me get one more, just one more." He worked for 4 hours of constant danger. Japanese soldiers walked right past him in the smoke and confusion. Machine gun fire cut the air around him. Mortars landed close enough to shower him with rocks. He never stopped. Private, corporal, sergeant, didn't matter. If they were wounded, Desmond found them, got them to the edge, lowered them down. 75 men. One unarmed medic. 4 hours. When the last man reached the bottom, Desmond looked at the empty ridge. The Japanese were coming. He could hear them organizing in the caves, preparing to sweep the ridge. He climbed down, hands raw and bleeding from the rope, body shaking with exhaustion, reached the bottom as the Japanese attack hit the now empty ridge top. Captain Glover was waiting, staring, unable to speak. Finally, "How many?" "I don't know, sir. I stopped counting." "The men, they said you stayed up there alone for hours." "The wounded needed help, sir." "You could have died." "Yes, sir." "Why didn't you come down with everyone else?" Desmond looked at Glover with those gentle, impossible eyes. "Because they would have died, sir, and I promised I'd keep them alive." 75 men descended that cliff and lived because of one unarmed medic who refused to abandon them. The battalion surgeon later counted the wounded Desmond had saved, verified the number. 75, in one day, under constant fire. Alone, it was impossible. It defied every tactical doctrine, every logical assessment of risk and capability. But it happened. The men who had beaten Desmond in basic training now refused to go on patrol without him. Vickers said it out loud. "If Doss is with us, we're coming back alive." The man they'd called a coward had become their good luck charm, their guardian angel, their proof that God might actually care about soldiers. 2 weeks later, May 21, 1945, the 77th Division fought to clear the rest of Okinawa. Desmond was with them. Always with them. During one firefight, a grenade landed near Desmond and 4 other soldiers. Desmond saw it, had time to run. Instead, he kicked it away from the others. It exploded. Shrapnel tore into his leg and arm. He treated his own wounds, then treated the others, refused evacuation until everyone else was safe. The next day, injured and barely able to walk, he went back out with the company because they needed a medic, and he was their medic. May 29, 1945. Sniper fire hit Desmond in the arm, shattered the bone. He fell. Other soldiers ran to help. "No," he shouted. "There's a man worse than me, help him first." They brought the other wounded man down the hill, then came back for Desmond, found him bandaging his own shattered arm, in shock, bleeding badly, still refusing to leave until everyone else was safe. They finally evacuated him, shipped him to a hospital ship, then back to the States. The war in the Pacific would end 3 months later. Desmond Doss would never fight again, but he'd done enough. October 12, 1945, the White House, Washington, D.C. President Harry Truman stood on a platform in front of assembled soldiers, officers, and press. He held a small blue ribbon with white stars, the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration in the United States. "Today," Truman said, "we honor a soldier who exemplifies the very best of American courage and sacrifice. Private First Class Desmond Doss, United States Army, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action above and beyond the call of duty." Desmond stood at attention, thin, quiet, still looking like a farm boy who'd wandered into the wrong place. Truman read the citation. Private Doss was a company aidman when the 1st Battalion assaulted a jagged escarpment 400 feet high. The enemy opened fire with artillery, mortar, and machine gun fire, causing approximately 75 casualties and driving the others back. Private Doss refused to seek cover and remained in the fire-swept area, carrying the wounded one by one to the edge of the escarpment and lowering them on a rope-supported litter down the face of a cliff to friendly hands. The citation continued, detailed every act, every risk, every impossible moment. When Truman finished, he looked at Desmond. "Son, I don't know how you did this, but I'm proud as hell to give you this medal." He pinned the Medal of Honor on Desmond's chest. Desmond saluted. The crowd applauded. And in that moment, Desmond Doss became the only conscientious objector to ever receive the Medal of Honor, the only soldier decorated for saving lives without ever taking one. Vickers was in the audience, crying. The man who'd beaten Desmond in basic training now couldn't speak through his tears. "I almost killed him," he said later. "I almost killed the man who saved my life." Captain Glover was there too, no longer angry, no longer calling Desmond a coward. "I was wrong," he admitted to reporters. "Doss is the bravest man I ever served with, braver than me, braver than anyone, because he faced every danger we faced, and he did it without a weapon to protect himself." The Medal of Honor came with other honors, parades, speaking engagements, people wanting to hear his story. Desmond hated it. The attention, the fame, the idea that he was special. "I just did what anyone would do," he insisted. "No," soldiers told him, "you did what no one else could do." Desmond returned to Virginia, married his sweetheart Dorothy, lived a quiet life, worked as a carpenter again, raised a family, went to church every Saturday, lived by the same faith that had nearly got him court-martialed. The shrapnel wounds never fully healed. His arm never regained full strength. Tuberculosis, contracted during the war, eventually cost him a lung and 5 ribs. Decades of pain from injuries that would have killed most men. But he never complained, never regretted. Never wished he'd done anything different. "God protected me," he said simply, "because I trusted him." He died in 2006. Age 87, buried at Chattanooga National Cemetery. His headstone reads, "Desmond T. Doss, Medal of Honor recipient." But the soldiers who served with him knew a different truth. His headstone should have read, The man who proved that courage needs no weapon. The story of Desmond Doss challenges everything we think we know about war, about bravery, about what it means to serve. He was called a coward for refusing to kill. He was beaten, mocked, court-martialed, and nearly destroyed by the very army he was trying to serve. But when the moment came, when 75 men needed someone to save them, the man with no weapon became their only hope. Think about that. 75 families got their sons, brothers, fathers back. 75 men lived to see victory, to come home, to have children and grandchildren. All because one unarmed medic refused to abandon them. The men who called him a coward later said he was the bravest man alive. The captain who tried to have him court-martialed admitted he was wrong. The fellow soldiers who beat him in basic training later refused to fight without him. Desmond Doss didn't change because the war proved him right. The war changed because Desmond Doss refused to compromise who he was. He climbed toward gunfire while others climbed down. He stayed while others ran. He saved while others killed. And in doing so, he proved that the greatest courage isn't the willingness to take a life. It's the refusal to abandon one. On Hacksaw Ridge that day, Desmond prayed 75 times, "Please, Lord, help me get one more." God answered 75 times, and 75 men who should have died went home to their families. That's not just a war story, that's a miracle. The question isn't whether Desmond Doss was brave. Everyone who saw him admits that. The question is, could you do what he did? Could you face death unarmed? Could you refuse to compromise your beliefs even when everyone said you were wrong? Could you save the people who beat you, mocked you, tried to destroy you? Desmond Doss could, and did. And because of that, 75 impossible rescues became the most controversial, most debated, most inspiring act of heroism in World War II. They called him a coward. He called it faith. History calls it the miracle at Hacksaw Ridge. Every word of this story is true. Every impossible moment documented and verified. Desmond Doss really did save 75 men while unarmed. Really did lower them down a 400-foot cliff by hand. Really did refuse to abandon them when everyone else retreated. The courage to kill is common in war. The courage to save while everyone else is killing. That's rare. That's special. That's Desmond Doss. He proved that you don't need a weapon to be a warrior. You just need a reason to fight that's bigger than yourself. His reason was simple. They're my brothers, and I won't leave my brothers behind. 75 men lived because of those words. 75 families stayed whole because one man refused to quit. 75 times, Desmond Doss looked at a dying soldier and said, "Not today, you're not dying today." And 75 times he was right. That's not just heroism. That's a testimony to what human courage can achieve when it refuses to surrender. The coward who wouldn't fight became the soldier everyone wanted beside them in battle. The man they tried to court-martial became the only conscientious objector ever awarded the Medal of Honor. The farm boy from Virginia who loved God more than he feared death became living proof that faith, courage, and conviction can change the world. Desmond Doss climbed toward hell unarmed, and he came back with 75 souls that death couldn't claim.